Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Diaz. I am the founder of the Steven Spectrum Career Project, a nonprofit dedicated to providing workshops, training, and mentorship that lead to meaningful work to the neurodiverse community. Today, we have the honor of speaking with and chatting with Dr. Temple Grandin, an author, advocate, and influencer figure in both the neurodiversity community and in advanced cattling. Her book, Thinking in Pictures, My Life with Autism, shares her personal journey and unique perspective. Good morning, Dr. Temple Grandin. How are you?
Well, I'm just fine.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm sorry for that long intro, but I just wanted to make sure that I capture all the things that you've done, and I didn't even get to the half of it, right?
Well, most of my career was spent on designing livestock handling facilities.
Yes.
And when I first started out in the 70s, being a woman was a much bigger barrier than autism was.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I had to make myself very good at what I did. And I also was good at seeing doors to opportunity. Doors to opportunity are everywhere, and people do not see them. There's a scene in the HBO movie Temple Grandin where I go up to the editor of our State Farm magazine and I get his card because I knew if I wrote for that magazine, that would help my career.
Yes.
I saw that door.
Wow.
And women,
That's
there were more
amazing.
women in ag journalism at that time. And I got a reputation for covering cattle meetings very accurately.
Well, that's why I think that it's so important that we have this talk today because your insights are invaluable. And from what we spoke about the other day, you know what the organization is attempting to do with finding work in the neurodiverse community, in particular autism. And I wanted to kind of get your perspective on what training programs do you feel would be most valuable in the neurodiverse community?
Let's just start with some basic principles. The transition to work needs to start ideally at around 11. We need to find a replacement for the old paper route. They don't exist anymore. I know that.
Mhm.
How about a volunteer job at a farmer's market or at a religious institution where their child is doing a task on a schedule outside the home where somebody else is the boss? It's really important. It could be walking the neighbor's dog. It has to be somebody else's dog. They're legal. They need to be getting some real jobs before they graduate from high school. I want to just give you a few things I want to avoid. Avoid the crazy multitasking jobs like a McDonald's takeout window. Let's just not go there.
Yes.
Another thing is, I have problems remembering long strings of verbal information. So give instructions in a pilot's checklist format with bullet points of the steps. For example, on how to clean the ice cream machine and put it back together again. That would just be an example. Those are two little things that would really help out.
Okay, great. And
But I
then
also want to emphasize it's never too late to start. And
yeah,
I've seen some really good work programs just recently.
tell me a little bit about one of them. I know that we discussed one. Just elaborate, just so whoever is listening could kind of hear a little bit about it.
Well, there's a very good program in Denver called TACT, Teaching Autistic Community Trades. And I did a lot of stuff with people that were very good at the trades, welders who could just invent just about anything, very, very inventive. And these people are not going to get replaced by automation. Absolutely not. You're still going to need people to fix things. And there's a very good program on teaching autistic adults how to fix cars. Now, I really like some of the things about this program, and I think it could be replicated in other places. You need to find a job you like. So the adults go to a 2-week camp where they can try on welding, try on fixing cars, maybe try on electrician, try on fixing computers, try on some different jobs. And then to teach the auto mechanics, for example, there's a very small class, 6 students per class with a mechanic and also a job coach. And they're taught things like dressing properly for work. They've got to be on time. And then car dealerships are hiring now. In fact, TACT has contracts with some car dealers. And there's also extensive job coaching with a job coach after they go to the place of employment. So
Yes.
those are three things that they're doing in this program. I was very pleased about. I just got back from a trip to Mexico and went to a very innovative pork processing plant that's hiring all kinds of people with disabilities, deaf, blind, autistic. One autistic man, he memorized every product code for their export products. Now, to make a program like that successful, top management, owner of the company, has to be behind it. The
Of course.
top has to be behind it. I cannot emphasize that enough.
Thank you for that, because I think that the leader has to be behind anything if anyone else is to follow. We actually created a horse program, and we spoke about it a little bit, where the individual would at first learn horse safety, anybody who's interested,
Okay.
and then they'll be able to pick a track, whether it's horse grooming, being a horse trainer, or a horse exerciser. And within the program, they will be provided free room and board during their work experience, during their while they're training and while they're working full time, free health insurance, dental and vision. What do you think the impact of a program like that would have on someone who is interested and really good at it?
Well, I think it could really have an impact. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of mentors. I had a wonderful science teacher who got me to study. He's now studying was a pathway to becoming a scientist. I had a very good mentor out in the construction industry, a small steel and concrete contractor, actually a former Marine Corps captain, starting a small company. He helped me get my freelance business started. Mentors are extremely important.
I agree. I have a mentor myself, and that's why I think it's very important that with this program or any other program, that once they are employed or through the process, that they do have a mentor. So speaking about them having, like in this particular program at least, living on their own, for those that don't live on their own, what living skills or living workshops do you recommend somebody who does want to begin living on their own have? Someone besides the mentor, a workshop or a training program that they can take and then have a mentor throughout it?
Well, I see too many parents overprotect these kids. I'm seeing 16-year-olds that are doing really well in school who have never gone shopping by themselves. They don't have a bank account. They're not learning how to drive. I'm in New York City, you can do just fine without a car.
Yes.
But my work that I did in livestock would not have been possible without driving. And I want to tell you, it's going to take longer to learn because this is how you have to deal with the multitasking issue problem. Get in a totally safe place like a giant stadium parking lot at 6 o'clock Sunday morning when it's absolutely deserted. So if the car lurches forward, there's nothing to hit. 20 minutes every day for a month. And then maybe carefully go out into traffic. I learned on a dirt road driving to my aunt's mailbox. It was a total of 6 miles, the round trip. But this long period of practice, because there's been a lot of great programs. And one of the things that's hurt the programs is Ubers and Lyfts all the time, paying for that, going broke on the transportation. And the driving, yeah, it's going to take a lot longer, but we need to do it. And when I say a totally safe place, I mean nothing to hit. I'd
Yes.
rather find a parking lot with no light posts.
Got it. Yeah, my nephew is autistic. He's 28 now, but one of the things that my sister really made sure of was that he got his driver's license, and that gave him a lot of independence. So thank you for that. Um, we, I remember you mentioning How to Dance in Ohio, the Broadway play with
Yes.
um,
Yes. In fact, I
the
went to the
autistic
opening
cast.
show. Here's the playbill for it right here.
Yes, I'm dying to go. I will be going
Well, yeah,
soon.
you need to go. And it's based on a documentary on true story of a clinic that teaches autistic adults life skills.
Yes.
And their ending finale is to have a dance. but I cannot emphasize how important the teaching of life skills is. And the original people that was based on came out for the curtain call. And I remember one guy looked in kind of a rumpled suit, and I had a really good seat up close. And I don't think he liked being on that stage, but he was there. Something we have to do is stretch these kids. You don't throw them in the deep end of the pool, but you stretch them and you give them choices. Like one of the issues with the auto shop and the skilled trades is the noise of the tools. But one of the ways to help the individual get over that is go down in the shop when nobody's there, and you can turn the electric drills on and just do them over and over and over again, where the individual is controlling the noisy thing, like an electric drill, for example. And when they control the noisy thing, it's often a lot better tolerated.
Okay. I know that there are some times where things like that may bother an individual, like noise or light. What kind of advice would you give an employer, or not advice, more like education on once they hire someone that's neurodivergent and they have something that does bother them, like the noise or the light?
Well, sometimes they'll need a place to go chill. Now, one issue that can be a problem, it could be a problem in a shop, it also be a problem in autism in an office, is flickering of LED lights. So you take the phone out right here and you set it in slow motion video, and you can find the bad lights. And there's different technical reasons why they flicker, but that is probably in an indoor environment one of the top things that has to be fixed. And it isn't necessarily more expensive LED lights are required to fix that. And one way to help that, let's say like our beautiful new lecture hall, I just found out flickers. I have a student that's sensitive to this. I'm not. Well, one thing she could do is take an LED light that does not flicker, a little battery one, and put it on her desk. That could help. Get over by the window would help if the classroom has a window. I'm always trying to think of really practical things. But I tell architects, please, please not have LEDs that flicker. Please don't. That's the single most important thing you could do from an architecture standpoint. Because it also bothers veterans with head injuries. They have the same problem.
Good point. Um, Going back to How to Dance in Ohio, what are your thoughts on, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear it from you. What are your thoughts on the neurodiverse in the arts?
Well, I think it's a good place for them to be, because let's look at what's going to happen with jobs in the future with artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Live theater is not going to go away. And skilled trades, like being an electrician, is not going to go away. Video game animation, watch out. Artificial intelligence is going to eat that one all up. And you might be interested in my book, Visual Thinking, Hidden Gifts of People Who Think in Pictures, Patterns, and Abstractions. And in the autistic spectrum, there's kind of three kinds of thinkers. You have the object visualizer like me. That makes me good at things like inventing mechanical devices, working with animals, photography, art. Now, the thing I'm really bad at is algebra. And I'm very concerned that my kind of mind is getting screened out by draconian higher math requirements. Because I worked with a lot of people that owned big shops that had multiple patents on specialized mechanical equipment, and they can't do algebra. These people are not getting replaced. In fact, I went to a shop recently that TACT was running, and I saw a beautiful little flower that a student had made out of nuts, out of just metal parts in the shop. He could see how daisy in those metal parts. That's the same kind of person. If he works in a factory and they want to modify a piece of equipment, this person will be able to do it. Then you have your pattern thinker. This is your extreme mathematician. They think patterns, not pictures. Think computer programming, chemistry. Boy, I can tell you, artificial intelligence is doing amazing things in chemistry right now. And then your word thinker. This is the autistic kid that memorizes every fact about their favorite movies. And the kinds of jobs that they can be very good at, where there's been some good successes, is what I call quiet specialized retail. where you work one-on-one with a customer. For example, selling new cars. That's been very successful. Selling sporting goods and helping somebody pick out the right baseball mitt or some other piece of equipment. Selling, banks have had success with selling financial products I don't even understand. But
Really?
it's something that is specialized. That's been helpful. And then down in Mexico, there was an autistic man that memorized all the product codes for every export product they had, and he's in charge of labeling the boxes.
Nice.
And so you're doing jobs where you're using their ability. And I'm going to guess that people I worked with that owned metal shops that built things all over the US, 20% of them were either autistic, dyslexic, or ADHD. They are not getting replaced. Taking shop classes out of the schools, one of the worst things we ever did. And I'm going to be pushing the trades even more because these jobs are not going to get taken over by artificial intelligence. I am watching that real closely. And theater is not going to go away. Live concerts are not going to go away. People are still going to want to go to live theater. I can't believe it. The Rolling Stones are my age and they're still filling stadiums.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Amazing. I guess like the vocational program, any vocational program or trade would just depend on the type of thinking. Um,
Well, I think the thing to do is expose kids to lots of different things and see what they gravitate towards. I just had lunch with a family yesterday, and their little hyperactive boy, very hyperactive at the restaurant, loves math. Move them ahead. Move them ahead. Give them a college algebra book. For me, that book's a doorstop. For that kid, it's a doorway.
exactly.
And they like the old-fashioned books where it's all numbers and not these like weird word problems. And just move them ahead in math. Introduce them to computer programming, JavaScript. That's what Minecraft works off of. Python. Well, now my students right now have to learn a thing called RStudio for doing statistics. It's not all that easy.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
No.
So one of our mission, or well, part of our mission is to educate the community on the neurodiverse, but we especially want to educate employers on how to make a more inclusive environment. And that doesn't only mean gender, that doesn't only mean race, but to include the neurodiverse. What advice or what would you tell them if any of them are watching or hearing this?
Well, one thing I learned to do early in my career is I became good at being livestock editor for State Farm magazine. But I learned to show people my portfolio. Like, here's one of my drawings for one of my jobs. And so to sell freelance jobs, I showed off pictures and drawings, showed a portfolio. Now, a lot of human resource people are very verbal oriented. And I did a Zoom call with an airline, and they have a shortage of mechanics. I said, maybe you need to be changing that interview process and have somebody come in and show you the car they rebuilt. Okay, you're going to have to rebuild a jet engine. I think that's the guy you want to have rebuilding that jet engine. Then he can learn the airplane mechanics. But someone that's taken, some old car and totally fixed it up, that's the person that you want doing some of the really complicated repairs because they can just see where the problems are. Where the regular interview process, okay, you got to be good at talking to people.
Yeah.
But I worked with people, they weren't all that good at talking to people, but boy, could they invent stuff? Could they build things? And I worked with those people.
It is unfortunate that the interview process can, well, it is subjective, and some people do, even though they're brilliant at what they do, may not be able to pass through to the next step because they
Well,
don't.
I think some of this process we have to short circuit it because half of all good jobs are backdoor. You know somebody to get in. And the back doors are everywhere. Like, for example, in the movie, when I went up and I got the editor's card, I saw that back door. If I wrote for that magazine, that would help my career. And then I produced a really good article. and women were in the 70s more accepted in ag journalism. That was one place where women were being employed. And I saw that back door and I started writing articles for them. That definitely helped my career.
Amazing. Um, One thing that I would want you to kind of like um I guess debunk or um educate a little bit of any misconceptions out there on the neurodiverse that bother you the most or that you've heard of the most for anyone who's listening.
Well, this is where they're going to need some coaching. And one thing on the hygiene, there's a scene in that movie where they slammed down the deodorant and said, "You stink, use it." And in the TACT program, yep, they got a shower. They can't come in filthy, dirty slob. There's some things you've got to do. And on my very first project, I criticized some welding, and I said it looked like a pigeon had doo-dooed on it. And the plant engineer did just the right thing. He pulled me into his office in the boiler room and explained to me that I should apologize for that kind of language. And also that the welder worked for him. And if I didn't like the welding, I should have come to him because he was the boss of the welder. He quietly, in private, explained to me what I should do. He was perfect job coach. And there's a way to criticize something without being so rude about it. And let's say you're working in a shop and you think there's several people working in a shop fixing cars and you're making some comments about the other employer. This is where a job coach will pull them aside. You know what? Just mind your own business. Work on your vehicles and make sure they are right. Keep your mouth shut. But the whole filthy, dirty slob thing, yeah, that's not acceptable. Yeah, I dress eccentric, but that scene where the deodorant slammed down, that actually happened.
Wow.
And I thank them for that now. Yeah, there's some stuff where you've got to conform. You just can't be a rude, filthy, dirty slob.
Okay.
There's some people that say accept everything that we do. I'm looking at specific accommodations like the lighting that flickers in the shop. That'd be a problem. Directions presented in a pilot's checklist bullet point format. Another thing that would save a lot of jobs, because there were electrician jobs, a couple of them that were lost because the boss went yak, 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 yak. And the apprentice installed the wrong fixtures and the wrong switches in the wrong places. Where if just a little bit of time had spent 2 minutes to write down where to install the different stuff and which fixture, that would not have happened.
Oh, great.
And now these are simple accommodations.
Okay.
And I don't want to avoid certain rapid multitasking chaos jobs.
Okay. So before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to add from what we spoke about today or that we didn't touch on today?
Well, I'm telling employers, first of all, you have to realize different kinds of thinking exist. I did not know that verbal thinking existed till I was in my late 30s. I've talked to bosses that didn't know that visual thinking existed. In fact, when I was doing book signing for my visual thinking book, I talked to a high school principal where I did one of the book talks, and he didn't know that visual thinking existed. They think you need algebra for logical thinking. Now, if you're going to be doing orbital mechanics, yes, you're going to need all that higher math. But what everybody forgets is the mathematicians got the Mars rover to Mars, but a craftsperson built the cameras on a workbench. That often doesn't get enough credit. And to prevent a mess like Fukushima, we need my kind of mind. They had no watertight doors to protect the electric emergency cooling pump. I don't know how to design a nuclear reactor, but I wouldn't have made that mistake because all I need to know is if that pump doesn't work when I need it, you're in so much trouble, it's not funny.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. But you see, I see it. I see it. And you have to be, I tell business people, we need the different kinds of thinkers, and they have complementary skills. For example, in a food processing plant, the mathematicians do the boilers and refrigeration, and my kind of mind's out in the shop inventing all kinds of mechanical equipment that's necessary for food processing.
Great. Now, before we end today, are there any recent projects that you're working on that you can give us a little sneak peek?
Well, I'm out doing my talks, and I'm very happy that just recently I've seen 3 really good work things in the last month. The TACT program for teaching skilled trades to people on the spectrum, the Broadway show, which I went to opening night, I was invited to it, and the place in Mexico that's hiring many different disabilities to label boxes and assemble boxes. And in that situation, the top owner is behind it. That's really important because I saw a really good disability program go downhill when the corporate vice president had a stroke.
Oh,
You've
wow.
got to have a top person wanting to make it work. But also, we need these different kinds of thinkers. We need the skills. That's something I emphasize to business people. And I'm seeing too many kids where they're having so much emphasis on academics, they're not learning shopping, bank account, budgeting, driving, just basic life skills. They're having too much done for them. And you want to work on things gradually, a gradual transition from working skills, into it. Sudden transitions and surprises are bad. I had learned to live away from home because I went to boarding school, but also spending the summer at my aunt's ranch was time living away from home. I suggested to one family, maybe your kids start spending a night in a hotel room just to get the idea of sleeping somewhere else. So it's a gradual transition. But they kind of get so locked into the label, they can't imagine that there's some parents can't imagine their kids even capable of doing anything. And then I go out in the industrial world and I think about this guy that built a bunch of equipment for me, tons of patents. He was very autistic, never formally diagnosed.
Wow. So we've come to the end, but before we go, I do want to hear I've already picked up your book, but if you can just let the audience know about a little bit more about your book. Um
Well,
and
in my visual thinking book right here, Visual Thinking, Hidden Gifts of People Who Think in Pictures, Patterns, and Abstractions, I discuss different kinds of thinking. There's also a chapter in there where I go over all the scientific research. That there's scientific research that shows an object visualizer like me who thinks in pictures is different from a pattern thinker math person. They're actually different kinds of thinking. Because I had one reviewer write that the book was real anecdotal. Yeah, chapter 1 is anecdotal. But in the next chapter, I've got the science and the references. And I also have a young reader version of the book called Different Kinds of Minds. It's basically a shorter version of it. Well, I made sure all the scientific references on the different kinds of thinker were not taken out of the reference list. I had to take a lot of stuff about school policy out, but different kinds of thinking actually does exist, is based in science. And the first step is realizing that it exists and using these people's skills in a complementary manner.
well, great. I mean, it was great talking to you today. Um, I look forward to when all our programming is done. I look forward to inviting you to the Steven Spectrum Career Project over here in New York City. And everyone, please pick up her book, Visual Thinking. And if you want to learn more about the Steven Spectrum Career Project, go to the stevenproject.org.
I also like to recommend people go see the show How to Dance in Ohio. That's the name of the show, and support autistic actors there. That's a really fun show. You'll like it.
Yes, I'm definitely going. I already invited my nephew, I invited my husband, I invited everyone. We're going to go in February because they're still going to be up and running because that's the only time we can all coordinate to go. But we
Yeah,
will
well,
be there and
that will be good because I talked to a lot of people that there were a lot of dedicated people that worked on making that show possible, making it work, and they're out there doing it. I want to commend that.
Yeah.
Theater is a career that's not going to get replaced with artificial intelligence. People are still going to want to go to live concerts and live plays.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Temple. I've had such a great time speaking with you. Like I said, I would love to invite you to down to New York City once all our programming is done, just so you can take a look and we'll have another chat.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to sign off now. And it's been great to talk to you.
Same here. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay, goodbye. I'm going to sign off. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks.
Goodbye.